When therefore you shall see the abomination of desolation, as spoken of by Daniel the prophet, standing in the holy place, let him who reads understand. Welcome to Revelation Unraveled. I'm your host, William Tapley, also known as the third eagle of the apocalypse and the co-prophet of the end times. This will be my fourth program on the abomination of desolation. And so far we have discovered that each of the 4 times that Daniel describes the abomination of desolation, he is addressing one of the 4 groups who will reign with Jesus during the millennium. And so far we have looked at the protected Catholics and the holy martyrs. Now in this program we will be looking at the raptured Protestants. First, let's review where those 4 groups who will reign with Jesus during the millennium are found, this time in Revelation 11, verse number 18, where John says God will render a reward. And the reward he is talking about is the 1,000 years of peace. God will render reward to your servants. Now the servants are the converted Jews. Render reward to your prophets. The prophets are the raptured Protestants. Render reward to your saints. The saints are the protected Catholics. And render reward to those who fear your name. And those who fear God's name would be the holy martyrs. Now each of these 4 groups must respond to the abomination of desolation at a different time, because there is a different abomination of desolation for each group. Now we've already looked at the protected Catholics, and their timing was 1290 days until Armageddon. We've looked at the holy martyrs. Their time was 1150 days till Armageddon. On our next program we will look at the converted Jews, and their timing is 1260 days until Armageddon. So this is great. Now we are going to be able to find out when the rapture occurs, because we will find out how many days it is between the rapture and Armageddon. There's only one catch. Yes, Daniel does give the number of days for most of the groups except in one chapter, and that's chapter number 11. In fact, that's how we know that chapter number 11 refers to the raptured Protestants, because Daniel does not give a date. Let's look at Daniel chapter 11, verse number 31. And arms shall stand on his part, and they shall pollute the sanctuary of strength, and shall take away the daily sacrifice, and they shall place there the abomination that makes desolate. Please note there are no days mentioned here until Armageddon. And the reason being is that this is a historical event. This is not an end times prophecy. The his part in this case is not the Antichrist, nor is it the false prophet. This is referring to a historical figure known as Antiochus Epiphanes. In this polluting of the sanctuary of the strength and taking away the daily sacrifice occurred more than 2,500 years ago. And the abomination that makes desolate was in fact Antiochus Epiphanes himself. So what is Daniel and our Lord telling you Protestants who are going to be raptured? He is telling you that the sign for you has already occurred 2,500 years ago. Please don't wait for some kind of covenant between the Antichrist and Israel, or maybe the starting of a third temple with animal sacrifice. Your abomination, your warning has already occurred. You must prepare now for the rapture. In fact, this coincides exactly with what Jesus said, that he will come like a thief in the night. You cannot know the timing of the rapture. You must prepare now. You must have your lamps full and your wicks trimmed at all times. Now let's take a look at the structure of Daniel chapter number 11. And I've already done this in depth on previous programs, so this will be just a quick review. And although Daniel does not use a chiasmus in this chapter as he did in chapters 8, 10, and 12, the structure still tells the same story, and that is that Mary's rosary will defeat the Antichrist. There is a rather startling additional prophecy, however, in the structure, And that is that before Mary's rosary defeats the Antichrist will defeat Barack Obama and the United States of America. First, let's look at the first 4 verses of Daniel chapter number 11. In the first 4 verses of Daniel chapter number 11, the prophet describes 6 ancient kings. Now, we are not aware of the significance of either the 6 or the 4 verses until much later in the chapter when we come to verse number 33. And that's where Daniel describes 4 items. He mentions sword, fire, captivity, and spoil. Now, this alerts us that there may be some more important and significant numerology in this chapter. And sure enough, 5 verses later, Daniel lists 4 more objects: gold, silver, precious stones, and things of great price. 5 verses later, Daniel describes treasures, gold, silver, and precious things. So through this numerology of 4 items, exactly in the middle of 5 verses, first verses 31 through 35, 36 through 40, and 41 through 45, Daniel is setting up 2 different numerological sequences. A sequence of 4 items, 4, 4, 4, and a sequence of verses, 5, 5, 5. So now we go back to verse number 1, and we understand the significance of the 6 kings and the 4 verses. We simply extrapolate that the 4 verses would be repeated twice more, 4, 4, 4. And that leaves 18 verses in the middle. And therefore, we divide those up in the same type of a pattern of 6, 6, 6. And of course, what this indicates is that 666, which is the number of the Antichrist, will be defeated by the number 555, that is the following 15 verses, which signify Mary's rosary. So once again, when we read and understand, as Jesus told us to do, the abomination of desolation, as spoken of by Daniel here in chapter number 11, the message is the same. Even though he is talking to Protestants, the hidden verse structure tells us that Jesus will use Mary's rosary to crush the Antichrist. And the rosary is not just for Catholics. I know Protestants who pray Mary's rosary. In fact, I had a Baptist acquaintance once who received a locution from the Blessed Virgin Mary. So now is the time to take up our weapons. We will very shortly need them in very serious tribulation. And now let's take a look at the significance of those 6 ancient kings. The 6 ancient kings in the first 4 verses indicates that there is another 666 combination. In other words, the kings of the north, of which we know there are 5, and the kings of the south, of which we know there are 5, indicate that there must be one more king of the north and king of the south. And we find them in verses 36 through 40. Therefore, we see many different 444, 555, and 666 combinations in chapter number 11. This is the only one, however, of Daniel's end time chapters in which the 444 sequence is found. And that indicates the destruction of the United States, because that is followed by the 18 verses in an Antichrist pattern. Now, the reason Daniel may have included this warning to America that it will be defeated by the Antichrist and the one world government, because America is a Protestant nation. And as I said before, the abomination of desolation, which Daniel speaks about in this particular chapter, is a warning to Protestants that they must prepare and be ready at all times for their rapture. And as always, I do offer a free copy of my book, Revelation Unraveled. In case you are interested, you can write to the address you see on your screen, or you can send me a message to my YouTube channel.